Transplanted hair is now darker, coarse, thick, and frizzy. Hi there. I'm writing to get some answers and possibly some recommendations on what I can do now, as it's been over 2 years since my hair transplant, and my hair is not like my natural hair at all. It is much thicker, darker, and the texture is so rough and kinky. My natural hair is soft, but this looks like pubic hair even. I already went to my doctor, and he said that the new hair is healthier than my own, which I don't think it is, as it is awful. Please let me know what I can do to fix this.
Thank you for your question. You've submitted a photo of your frontal hairline and you provided a photo of some hairs, and you describe in your question that it's been about 2 years since your hair transplant, and you're concerned that the hair transplanted has a significantly different quality in terms of texture and kink to the hair compared to your native hair, which is softer. And you state that your doctor explained that the hair that was transplanted is actually healthier, but this has clearly been an area of concern for you. Well, I can give you some idea of my perspective based on just the limitations of the question, the history provided, and the photos. A little bit of background: I'm a board-certified cosmetic surgeon and fellowship-trained oculofacial, plastic, and reconstructive surgeon. I've been in practice in Manhattan and Long Island for over 20 years. Hair transplant has been a very significant part of my practice. And in fact, I'm the founder of TrichoStem Hair Regeneration Centers, a system we developed for non-surgical solutions for hair loss using regenerative medicine technology, combining acellular matrix, which is for wound healing, with platelet-rich plasma. And this was something that we do a lot of to help people with hair thinning, and people come to us from around the world. So just to give you a sense of my perspective on a problem like this, certainly I have a lot of experience in this area. So to begin with, I would first want to learn what was the indication for your transplant. And this kind of gives me a sense of how I would guide you. And it's kind of straightforward. Let's begin with, if the indication for hair transplant for you was a hairline lowering procedure, or to bring the hairline forward, and that you weren't suffering from a genetic pattern loss or androgenetic alopecia, then you are basically looking at just the behavior of the grafted hair, which can have a textural difference even though it was harvested from a donor area where the texture was more similar. Now, there's a variety of potential explanations for this, which are more in the medical and physiologic realm, but I would say that one thing to just be mindful of is to understand that hair growth cycles have a certain length of time. And a growth cycle, referred to as the anagen phase, which is the active growing phase, can last anywhere from 2 to 6 years. So a lot of times people, when their hair growth cycle for that transplanted hair has completed and it sheds, then it may just grow in a little softer as it did the original hair. It's something that certainly I have observed in my practice, where initially it looked a little bit strange and then after a few years seemed to look okay. What's the explanation for that? Well, at the end of a growth cycle, the anagen phase, the hair sheds, goes into a resting phase called telogen, and then comes back. It goes back to the anagen phase, and when it regrows, it grows in a way that may look more naturally contiguous or continuous with your existing hair. So for that, basically, waiting makes sense. Now, from the other perspective, if you had androgenetic alopecia or hair thinning, progressive hair thinning, then it could be that the contrast with your native hair is maybe a bit of a challenge. You know, we see this when we do this for any transplant, especially a male with thinning hair. very thin hair and then thicker hairs are placed in a way to try to blend in. In that situation, I would recommend a treatment like hair regeneration. Hair regeneration essentially helps people with thinning hair stop the progression of their hair loss, regrow hair that's not growing, and thicken hair that is thinning. So in a way, if your hair is thinning, then hair regeneration can help the thinning hair grow a little bit thicker and kind of blend a little bit with the hair that has this textural difference. Not saying that that's the only solution, the best solution, but it can kind of give you a strategy in terms of what will happen moving forward as you're waiting for your transplanted hair to kind of blend in a little bit better. You know, a lot of our patients come after having a transplant, and unfortunately, they're still continuing to thin, let's say 2 to 3 years later, and they're looking for an option as an alternative to transplant. And for those patients, hair regeneration actually fulfills a very important role, and they're actually able to avoid a second transplant. Again, you know, it depends on a case-by-case basis. Now, that being said, in your situation, if it's not about hair thinning, then again, to summarize, you can just wait this out and maybe work with your hairstylist about managing the hair in a way that can optimally blend, and understand that it's not necessarily permanent, and that a lot of times once that hair sheds out through the completion of its natural growth cycle, when it comes back, it might come in looking more like your normal natural hair. And then beyond that, if it were an issue of hair thinning being an issue, then a strategy to help strengthen your existing hair to help avoid more contrast between the transplanted hair and your existing hair with a technology like hair regeneration is worthwhile considering. So I hope that was helpful. I wish you the best of luck. Thank you for your question.